March 15th, 2004, 2:17 in the afternoon, room 314 at St. Mary's Hospital. That's when Dr. Peterson looked me straight in the eye and said the words that should have ended my life. "Frank, you have 6 months, maybe less." The smell of disinfectant burned my nose. The fluorescent light above his desk buzzed like a dying wasp. My wife's hand went cold in mine. 20 years later, I'm sitting here on my porch, watching the sun set over the same oak tree I thought I'd never see bloom again. And Dr. Peterson? He retired 5 years ago, still scratching his head about the man who refused to die on schedule. I'm Frank DiMaggio. I'm 90 years old, and I'm living proof that sometimes the experts are dead wrong. The cancer was aggressive, stage 4 pancreatic. The kind that doesn't negotiate, doesn't slow down, doesn't give second chances. "We can try chemotherapy," Dr. Peterson said, "but at your age with this type," he didn't need to finish. I knew what the statistics said. Pancreatic cancer has a 5-year survival rate of about 4%. At stage 4, most people don't see Christmas. It was March. I started doing the math in my head. 6 months would take me to September. Maybe I'd see one more harvest from the garden Mary and I had planted together for 37 years. The drive home from the hospital was the longest 23 minutes of my life. Mary gripped the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. She kept glancing at me like I might disappear right there in the passenger seat. "What do we tell the kids?" she finally whispered. We had 4 children, scattered across 3 states, all with their own families, their own problems. "We tell them the truth," I said. But I wasn't sure what the truth was anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked out to the garden and sat on the old wooden bench I'd built the year we bought the house. The tomato plants were just starting to show their first green shoots. I remember thinking, they'll die without me. It's strange what your mind focuses on when everything else is falling apart. Not my legacy, not my regrets, not even my family. I was worried about tomato plants. The first round of chemotherapy hit me like a freight train. I lost 22 pounds in 3 weeks. My hair fell out in clumps. Mary would find it on my pillow every morning, and I'd watch her face crumple as she gathered it up. The nausea was so bad I couldn't even smell coffee without my stomach turning inside out. Coffee had been my ritual for 60 years. Every morning at 5:30, black coffee and the morning paper on this same porch. Now the thought of it made me sick. Dr. Peterson ran tests every month. CT scans, blood work, the whole arsenal of modern medicine aimed at tracking my decline. And decline I did. By month 3, I was down to 138 pounds. I'd started at 175. My neighbor Bill stopped coming around. "Too hard to watch," he told Mary later. I don't blame him. I look like death walking. But something strange started happening around month 4. The nausea backed off, just a little. I managed to eat half a piece of toast one morning, then a whole piece the next day. Mary started crying when she saw me clean my plate for the first time in months. "Don't get your hopes up," I told her. But secretly, I was getting mine up too. Most people walk away when stories get this heavy. The fact that you're still listening, that means something. Hit subscribe. I've got more to tell. Month 5 came and went. I was supposed to be planning my funeral. Instead, I was back to drinking coffee. Weak coffee, but coffee. Dr. Peterson ordered another round of scans, expecting to document the final stages. I remember lying on that cold table in the radiology department, listening to the machine hum and click around me. The technician kept her face neutral, professional. But I caught her looking at the screen with confusion. "We need to run these again," she said. They ran them 3 times. Then they called in a specialist, then another specialist. The tumors were still there, but they weren't growing. In some places, they were smaller. Not gone, but smaller. Dr. Peterson called it highly unusual. The oncology team called it unexpected response. I called it a gift I didn't understand. 6 months passed, then 7, then 8. Every month, Dr. Peterson would order more tests, each time expecting to see the cancer resume its aggressive march. It never did. The tumors just sat there, dormant, like they'd decided to take a break from killing me. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted during one of our appointments. "The cancer is still there, but it's not behaving like pancreatic cancer should behave." Year 2 arrived like a surprise party. I was supposed to have been dead for 18 months. Instead, I was planting tomatoes again. My weight stabilized at 155. Still thin, but strong thin. The kind of thin that comes from fighting and winning, not from wasting away. Mary started talking about the future again, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. But the real test came in year 3. I started having pain again. Sharp, stabbing pain in my abdomen that would double me over without warning. This is it, I thought. The cancer's waking up. Dr. Peterson ordered an emergency scan. Mary and I sat in that waiting room for what felt like hours, both of us afraid to hope, afraid to despair. The results were impossible. The pain wasn't from cancer growth. It was from scar tissue. The tumors were shrinking so fast they were leaving behind fibrous tissue that was pulling on surrounding organs. My body was literally healing around the cancer, turning it into harmless scar tissue. "Frank," Dr. Peterson said, "I need to be honest with you. I don't know what's happening in your body." This goes against everything I learned in medical school, everything I've seen in 30 years of practice. You should not be here. But I was there, and I kept being there, month after month, year after year. I read something that changed everything around year 5. It said patience after 60 is the fastest way to die forgotten. My doctor said wait and see. I stopped waiting. I started living like I was going to be around for the long haul. That guide is in the description below. I took up woodworking, built a new deck, learned to use a computer, started writing letters to my grandchildren. Real letters with a pen on paper. I figured if I was going to stick around, I might as well make it count. Mary and I took a trip to Italy, something we'd always talked about but never done. We ate gelato in Rome and walked the bridges of Venice. I was 73 years old, supposed to have been dead for 3 years, and I was eating the best meal of my life in a little restaurant overlooking the Mediterranean. The medical community started taking notice around year 7. Dr. Peterson wrote papers about my case. Other oncologists requested my files. I became what they call a medical curiosity. Teams of researchers wanted to study my blood, my tissue, my DNA. They were looking for the secret, the key that unlocked spontaneous remission in stage 4 pancreatic cancer. They never found it. Sometimes, Dr. Peterson told me during one of our regular checkups, medicine isn't about the answers we can give. It's about accepting the mysteries we can't solve. You're one of those mysteries, Frank. But I had my own theories, not scientific ones, not theories that would hold up in medical journals. Personal theories, born from lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering why I was still breathing. I think it started with those tomato plants. The night after my diagnosis, when I sat in the garden worrying about vegetables instead of my own mortality, something shifted. I stopped fighting death and started tending life. Every morning I went to that garden, even on days when I could barely stand. When the chemotherapy had me weak as a newborn kitten, I went out there. I watered plants, pulled weeds, talked to the tomatoes like they were old friends. Mary thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. But those plants needed me, and somehow that need became stronger than the cancer. Year 10 was when the real changes started showing up. Not in my body, that had stabilized years earlier, but in my perspective. I'd been given a decade I wasn't supposed to have. 10 years of sunsets, 10 years of Mary's laugh, 10 years of watching grandchildren grow up. The weight of that gift changed everything about how I saw the world. I stopped wasting time on things that didn't matter. Stopped arguing with strangers on the internet. Stopped worrying about politics I couldn't control. Stopped holding grudges against people who probably didn't even remember what we'd fought about. When you're living on borrowed time, you learn to spend it wisely. My brother Tony came to visit that summer. We hadn't spoken in 8 years over some stupid disagreement about our father's tools after he passed. Tony walked into my kitchen, looked at me standing there making coffee, the same coffee that had nearly killed me with nausea a decade earlier, and started crying. "I thought you'd be dead," he said. "I thought I'd missed my chance to say I'm sorry." We spent 3 days talking, really talking, the way we used to when we were kids sneaking out to go fishing before dawn. All those years of silence wasted over a rusty toolbox and hurt pride. "Don't do what I did," I told my grandchildren later. "Don't wait for cancer to teach you what matters." Year 15 brought new challenges, not medical ones. My scans still showed stable disease, the tumors quiet as sleeping dogs, but emotional ones. Survivor's guilt, they call it. I'd joined support groups over the years, met other cancer patients, watched too many of them lose battles I somehow kept winning. Good people. Better people than me, some of them. Younger, stronger, with more to live for. Why me? Why was I the one who got to stay? Dr. Peterson retired in year 16. On his last day, he called me into his office for one final conversation. "Frank," he said, "I need you to know something. In all my years of practice, you're the case I'll remember most. Not because of the medical mystery, though that's fascinating, but because of how you chose to live with uncertainty." He handed me a thick folder. My medical records, every scan, every blood test, every note from 20 years of appointments. "Keep these," he said. "Someday, when medical science catches up to your story, they might help someone else." The new doctor, Dr. Martinez, is young enough to be my granddaughter. She approaches my case with fresh eyes, running genetic tests that weren't available when I was first diagnosed. "There are markers in your blood," she explained during our last visit. "Immune system indicators that suggest your body developed some kind of natural defense against the cancer. We're still studying it." But she said something else that stuck with me. "Mr. DiMaggio, even if we figure out the biological mechanism behind your survival, I don't think that's the whole story. There's something about how you've lived these past 20 years that's just as important as any medical intervention." Year 18 brought the hardest test of all. Mary was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. The woman who'd held my hand through chemotherapy, who'd driven me to countless appointments, who'd celebrated every clear scan like a personal victory, was slowly disappearing behind a fog of confusion and forgotten memories. For the first time since my own diagnosis, I felt truly helpless. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd survived cancer that should have killed me in 6 months, only to watch the love of my life fade away day by day. Some mornings she didn't remember my name, but other mornings she'd wake up and smile at me like she was seeing me for the first time in years. Those moments made every difficult day worth it. I became her caregiver, the way she'd been mine during those brutal early months of treatment. I learned to be patient with repetitive questions, to find joy in small recognitions, to love someone who was slowly becoming a stranger. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, harder than any surgery or chemotherapy. Mary passed last spring peacefully in our bed, with me holding her hand the same way she'd held mine in Dr. Peterson's office 20 years earlier. She was 87. I'm 90 now, still here, still confounding medical science, still tending the same garden where I once worried about tomato plants instead of my own mortality. After everything I went through, I found the 60-year rule. It has 9 rules that explain exactly why everything I believed was wrong after 60. It changed how I see my family, my health, my money, everything. Check the description. People ask me what I've learned from outliving my expiration date by 2 decades. The answer isn't what they expect. It's not about diet or exercise or positive thinking, though all of those probably helped. It's about acceptance. Not the kind of acceptance that gives up, but the kind that lets go of needing to control outcomes you can't control. I accepted that I might die in 6 months. I also accepted that I might not. I stopped trying to bargain with God or the universe or whatever force governs cell division and tumor growth. I started paying attention to what was still alive instead of what was dying. The tomatoes in my garden still grow. Different varieties now, heirloom seeds I order from catalogs. But the same soil, the same hands that have tended this patch of earth for 4 decades. Every spring I plant them, wondering if I'll be here for the harvest. Every fall I'm surprised and grateful when I am. Last month, Dr. Martinez showed me my latest scans. 20 years after Dr. Peterson gave me 6 months to live, the cancer is still there. Stable, quiet, but still there. It's like your body has made peace with it, she said. Like you've learned to coexist. Maybe that's the secret nobody can put in a medical journal. Not curing the cancer, but learning to live with it. Not defeating death, but making friends with life. Not controlling the outcome, but embracing the mystery. I still sit on this porch every morning at 5:30, drinking black coffee and reading the paper. The oak tree I thought I'd never see bloom again has given me 20 more springs. 20 more autumns of leaves turning gold and falling to feed next year's growth. 20 more winters of bare branches against gray sky, and 20 more summers of deep green shade. Sometimes I wonder what Dr. Peterson thinks about now, retired and playing golf somewhere in Arizona. Does he remember the stubborn Italian who refused to die on schedule? Does he tell other doctors about the case that never made sense? I hope he does. I hope he tells them that sometimes the most important thing medicine can do is admit what it doesn't know. That healing isn't always about curing. That survival isn't always about the science we can explain. I'm 90 years old. I've been living on borrowed time for 20 years. Every day is a gift I wasn't supposed to receive. And you know what? That makes ordinary moments extraordinary. The taste of coffee at dawn. The weight of a grandchild's hand in mine. The sound of rain on the roof of the house Mary and I shared for 53 years. If you're facing your own impossible diagnosis, your own medical mystery, your own fight with something bigger than you are, remember this: the experts might be wrong. Not always, but sometimes. Often enough to matter. Live like you might die tomorrow, but plan like you might live forever. Tend your garden. Hold the hands that matter. Make peace with uncertainty. And don't let anyone, not even a doctor with 30 years of experience, tell you when your story ends. Sometimes, just sometimes, you get to write a longer ending than anyone expected. Sometimes you get 20 extra years to figure out what really matters. Sometimes the mystery is the miracle. I'm Frank DiMaggio. I was supposed to die 20 years ago. I'm still here, still wondering why, still grateful for every sunrise I wasn't supposed to see. And that, somehow, is enough.